Конкурс актерских сценок.
So we can start. The first speaker of the team proposition is welcomed.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this amazing debate. Welcome from this side of house, proposition of totalitarianism. Our team today is this house believes that for CIS, strong leadership is better than democracy. So, to the best of our knowledge, totalitarianism, dictatorship, is a form of government in which ruler holds all power. He is not restricted by constitutions or laws or opposition. This was our first definition. The second definition is, what is democracy? Democracy is a system of government by the whole population, all of eligible members of a state, typically through elected representatives. And CIS is a Commonwealth of Independent States, is a regional organization whose participating countries are former Soviet Union republics formed during the break of the Soviet Union. So, first of all, I may want to make it clear what totalitarianism actually is. But before our criteria, we want to make CIS as flourish as Soviet Union was. In the work of Totalitarian Dictatorship and Autocracy of Karl Friedrich and Zbigniew Brzezinski was written on the basis of empirical comparison of Stalinist Soviet Union, Nazi Germany and Fascist Italy. They also made a number of defining features of a totalitarian society. So here they are. A single party, usually led by a dictator, which merged with the state approaches and secret police. Second, extremely high role of the state approaches, the penetration of the state in almost all spheres of life. Third, the lack of pluralism in the media. And the last, a major role of government propaganda, manipulation of mass concerns of the population. This list doesn't mean that any regime that is inherent in at last one of these features should be classified as totalitarian. In particular, some of these traits earlier were characteristic as democracy. Similarly, the lack of one of these traits doesn't mean that this country is not totalitarian. However, the first two criteria are the most striking for the country. So let me begin with pointing out our first argument why totalitarianism should exist in CIS. But before this, because I'm very nervous, I'd like to present our team. Our team calls Equilibrium. I am the first speaker, and I will speak about the problem in general and give you some argument. This is our second speaker, Alexander Balkin, and our third speaker, Rudikov Leonid. So the first point. One of the biggest advantages of totalitarianism is that decisions can be made in a split second. The one ruler holds all power. If he wants to make a decision, he can make it with a snap of his fingers. Big decisions within a democratic system take a very long time. For example, let's take the recent debt crisis in the USA. It took months and months of deliberation between congressmen and women. However, in totalitarian system, it would have been able to be raised with the snap of a finger by a dictator. Huge decisions that are threatening to the national security cannot wait. However, a democratic system forces them to wait. Yes, please.
Thank you. Do you know that in the USA, USSR and the USA are different types of the Congress, as you said? In the USA, Congress works, and in the USSR, the totalitarianism needs too much more time to make one bill, because only one person may write this bill, but not the Congress, not the Parliament, not the Verkhovna Rada.
Excuse me, what was the question?
Are you sure that the work is bad? Are you sure that the work of totalitarianism is better and faster?
Yes, I think so, because dictators can be as clever as they can, and if we will elaborate the member, the head of for CIS, we would choose not we, but the party which is the head of the state will choose the right head. About people didn't manage to invent some spheres without any mistakes. It is a human factor. So when it guarantees that decisions which were made by democratic ruler or Congress are absolutely right, they can be corrupted. Furthermore, I think that CS has enough clear-minded rulers that can become a totalitarian ruler. So my second argument is a healthy and political way of life. This argument implies a purity of the social political system of the country. First of all, in totalitarian regime, there is no place for corruption. It means that people are provided with easier and more comfortable life. They have more chances to be cared for and to be granted social benefits. Budget will be used for right purposes. Over the last few thousand years, there have been very none of democratic systems with planned economy. However, many totalitarian states were planned economies like Nazi Germany and Soviet Union. Almost most democratic systems so far have been free market. The economy of countries like Nazi Germany flourished under the totalitarian rule, not only Nazi Germany but Soviet Union. One of the main reasons for this, that is planned economy, is much better than free market. A planned economy is controlled by a state. It is better for a country as a whole. Therefore, a planned economy is better in the long run. So, I'd like to give you some numbers. You know that it's common knowledge that China is classified as totalitarian state. So, China has the 128th place of the level of death, while Russia has 22nd. Is it a reason to think that totalitarian is better than democracy? I think yes. In China lives only 10% of poor people, while in Russia 70 and 6%. Furthermore, China has a leading place in developing of economy. Around 91% of Chinese people are educated. I think these numbers really say that the totalitarian system is better. Time is over, yes? Yeah. Thank you.
The first speaker of the opposition team.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Chairman, opponents, timekeeper, I'm the first speaker of the team Pandora, Dasha. The second speaker of this team is Pasha, and the third is Vanya. Today we gathered to discuss the problem that is a global scale. People do not tend to think about the problem until it touches them personally. But it is a problem of all of us, and it must be spoken. That is why we gather here today to discuss about the topic. This house doesn't believe that for CIS, strong leaders is much better than democracy. And I would say our criteria. Our criteria is mega state under one governing has a risk of collapse instability, and also can cause a negative influence on the nations nearby. We agree with the definitions that that opposite team said, so we will give their refutation. Our opponents told us that the government, like in the CIS, will give laws easily. So why you think that if government has a very big territory, why it would be easily to give laws? So government will count every meaning of people which live in other countries, and it must take much time. And second, you said that there won't be corruption, but in such countries like Soviet Union, corruption took place. I would tell our arguments. So our first argument: union of different countries can cause vanishing one culture in culture of another country. As an example, we can take Soviet Union. In all educational institutions of Soviet Union, children, students had to learn Russian language. People of Soviet Union had to celebrate all holidays of Russian folk only because the leader of the union said them to do this. Such situation was in the Estonia. It's a small country on the northern eastern part of Europe, and within this the capital of this country, Tallinn, you can see different sites, monuments, museums. One of the museums will attract your attention. At the Museum of Occupation, 1946-1992 years. Can you guess what occupation they mean? Right, it's a Soviet occupation. Government of the Soviet Union forced Estonians to learn Russian language, Russian culture, and etc. And nowadays they don't like Russians because they have ruined their culture. Estonians now celebrate two types of holidays: Catholic and Orthodox, even though the official religion of Estonian people is Catholicism. After this, we can make conclusion. If we have one union of different countries, we can't avoid mixing of cultures of these countries, as we said in our criteria. And our second, yes.
Yes, you said that if the state would live under the one ruler, there will be no place for different cultures, yes?
Yes.
Yes, but in a totalitarian system, people live for their society. And yes, I asked one question and you answered. Thank you.
Our second argument: all empires ever fail. In our world, all things can't be eternal. As an example, we can take Roman Empire. It was the strongest empire ever. They had many capable warriors, wins in the wars, big territory and glory. So why the empire had failed? That empire firstly failed because of different religions of people. If we mix different folks in one country, of course we will have a big arguments, and now we have them about the religion. Religion is a delicate topic for discussion. There were many wars in the Middle Ages only because of the religion, and now we have them too, because every person has somebody to believe and not to believe. So because of society's soul, even empire can be failed. The second reason why Roman Empire was failed is the decadence. Before the unification of other countries, we cannot be sure that because of this union we will be more developed than separate countries. After this, we can make conclusion. We cannot be sure that union of countries will be more comfortable for people won't call the mixing of cultures. After all, our empire's evil fate. And we said this in our criteria. It's instability. And I hope everything that was said proved that having one government for CIS is a mistake, because mixing of cultures can cause a global war.
So, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and the second speaker. And first, I would like to respond to what the first speaker, opposite team, has said. So, you said that in USSR was corruption, but how do you know that? Please ask your relatives, your grandma or grandfather, if in USSR someone from government or someone from just simple citizens were corrupted, the government knows about it in just in a few days, because all of the people knows about, because you can't do that just only for you. And someone will know that, and that someone will tell government, and you will be restricted, killed, or punished, and something like that. Then you told about the only leader in the country and about nationalists. But I want to say you that in USSR there was no racism and no discrimination, because there was only one nation, US Soviet people, and this is a simple example of all totalitarian countries. In such countries there is no any nations, there is only one nation of the government.
Yes, please. So, you know, we are now in Crimea. And please, can you tell us the history of Tatars was which Soviet Union arrived in the Kazakhstan? Please tell us this story.
Sorry, but I misunderstood your question.
So
I'm asking.
let's pass this question.
No?
Sorry, okay. So then you told us about religions, but in USSR there was no religion, there was no government religion, but no one can forbid you to believe in the God and to be the constant of some religion. So there was religions, but there was no government religion, and I can tell you why. Religious is reason of the many wars, many religion wars. You can see examples of this in history, many examples of many countries and many wars. And if government doesn't have a religion, we can pass our life without any religion wars. So I think it's better to live without a government religion. And now I will try to open our way of solution this problem from all sides. So. I want to tell you how we can do totalitarian CIS and who can be the leader of such a union. Our team sure that there is only one country and one leader who has such enough power to take a leadership in totalitarian CIS. As you have seen from the words of Mary, yesterday's propositions to ensure that CIS countries have much more benefit than harms. And let's talk about persons, as I said. The only country that can take leadership now, in opinion of our team, is Russia, Russian Federation as today's. And the only person is Vladimir Putin, today's Russian president. So why? Because he is the main person on CIS political area, and only he has enough power to do this and to take this leadership. If we don't want to see a war for place of the totalitarian country leader, and I think we don't think to do so. Then I want to tell you that some facts about Putin. He is a strong leader that Russia has been waiting for, because his electoral success and consistently high approval rates shows that the people of Russia are ready for someone who can rid their society of increasing corruption and restore a sense of calm and equality. His ability to maintain a high level of support despite what some have called authoritarian tendencies can show us that the people of Russia and the people of CIS countries are ready to sacrifice a certain degree of freedom for the promise of stability. They need stability, they need to live without corruption. And I think we can do this just, by the way, we tell you now. In CIS, most people are accustomed to live under tight control because their heyday, their flourishing was at times of tight control, at times of Russian and other empires, at times of USSR, when nearly all CIS countries was at under one leader. So, if we are talking about cons of totalitarian country that you can say to us, having totalitarian government control the media is probably harder than having it controlled by the corrupted few that promote their personal interests rather than the interests of the state, and those of the population at large. If you're talking about economic, yes, the free market is better for every person who lives in the country, but for all of the country, the planned economic is much better, we think. So, sorry, it was an example of how we can solve this problem, and now I want to tell you our main argument for today is why we need to do this. Just remember, the times of totalitarian countries, the times of USSR, our country was so beautiful. There was many newest scientists openings, newest security openings, newest weapon, and all of our nature was so beautiful, and we were taking care of them. And what we see now we can't even say that we have done previously. So why the democracy is better? We see that now democracy, and now Ukraine and Russia and other past USSR countries is not so good like 6 centuries ago. So thanks for your attention.
Hello, my name is Masha. Yes. I want to speak my second speech. At first I want to begin with refutation. Your first argument was that one of the biggest country dictator have no corruption. So let us return some years later, or some years before, when the country of our parents and country of parents of our parents was living in. There was at first corruption because because all the ministers and all the statements was corrupted. Do you know that if you want to have your own place to live, you need to stay in the earth more than 10 years, and if you want to have the place to live now, you may go into the one of the men who can solve your problem and give him money. And corruption was. Don't refute this. Second argument was that the totalitarianism works clearly. It needs less time to make some laws. I don't think our team don't think so, because I have given you an example of America. In America, there are also Congress. Congress made the laws. But in the totalitarian country, the laws made only one person. One person which is leader of this totalitarian country. In the Soviet Union, it was the general secretary. In the French, it was the monarch. In the Roman Empire, it was the imperator. And if in the Russian Empire it was the king, and when king or emperor eating, playing football, I can't say what he will do, or sleeping, the state of the low mental not works. So the one man can't work for more than all men of the many. So you some reflect about something about individual interests. Do you think how many individual interests in the Congress and how many individual interests of the one totalist leader? One totalist leader can say that he wants to all men in his country gave him their daughters, and all men gives him, and the Congress can't do that. In the Congress, or I can give you an example. In America, people wants to, if Congress wants to make their salary higher, this law will be work in the another Congress, and the man who debate about this salary doesn't have this salary. So I'm going to the return in our case. Napoleon Bonaparte said, nations that don't want to feed their own army will feed the army of the other nations. And it's true. Nowadays nothing is changed. The people you are using to separate world in the first, second, and third world. First and second world are using to concurrent with them, and every world has each country leader. In the third world, in country is China or the UR. In the second world, it is the Russian Federation. In the first world, it is the USA. I know that our team knows that the USA has 7 force bases in the other countries of the first world. It's Greenland, Japan, Panama, Cuba, Serbia, Germany, and South Korea. Even there will be war of the first and second world. Not the USA or Russian Federation will strike at first. No, it will be the countries where the force bases are in. So about something one nation as some nations in the first one. You said that in the totalist country there isn't any nation. There isn't any. All men are working for society. No, thank you. And the society. Oh, thank you. And do you know something about Estonians men, where the people are harmed with Red Army soldiers? Or something about Tatars was arrives in the Kazakhstan when the Stalin thinks that they helped to the German fascist army. Do you know something about Kalmyks when there was censure that, and even the Pushkin's poems was declaimed, I made the monumentum. This name of the comics wasn't safe because it was a censor. So something another point. Do you remember? Yes.
So you said that there was such censor that even Pushkin's poems was restricted by it, but you know that maybe even there you can see people who were taught in the schools of Soviet Union, and all of them knows Pushkin poems, his other books and such other things. But what are you talking about? That it was restricted if all one know that.
I answer of your question. It is a comic, but not the all Pushkin poems were restricted. Were secret on the one vote comic. Reread the Pushkin poem I made the monumentum and find this vote. On the Pushkin Day birthday there wasn't time. And Harry, professor of Oxford University, said that the Soviet Union century collapsed on its own weight. Thank you for your attention.
The third speaker of the proposition team is welcome.
No, can I have a minute?
We haven't got such opportunity to give you a minute.
So now I want to support our team's argument, and the first argument was that decision can be made faster. So decisions which can be made with the difference between life and death of a society are made faster. It is one of the biggest advantages of totalitarianism, and in the opposition, in the opposite team, said that in democracy, decision made faster because of their parliament, not only one ruler. But it is in totalitarianism, one ruler can just make a decision with the second, and he doesn't need to just explain it or discuss with someone. And in the parliament, it takes months and years to get the conclusion or to find a compromise. So that's one of the biggest advantages of totalitarianism. Our second point was that planned economy is better than free market policy. As my teammate said, free market policy is better for people, but not for the country. And of course, the free market policy can flourish, but then it will just be destroyed by the corruption or something. So, and because of this, the planned policy is better for a country as a whole, and it will stay stable for a long time. And the third argument was that people need strong leadership, and it will lead to the law and order. Law and order. So, and I want to opposite one of your arguments about the corruption in USSR. How could you know about this corruption, that all the ministers and all the judges were corrupted? How could you know this?
Why? I asked my parents.
You asked your parents? When?
So,
Let's
I think that's all.
That's all?
The third speaker of the opposition team, you are welcome.
Hello, I'm the speaker of the opposition team. My name is Ivan Sova, and I'm the third speaker of our team Pandora. Now I want to refuse arguments of our team
Proposition.
Proposition team. Thank you. They said that a social politician system won't have corruption, and they said about a lot of scientists who were in the Soviet Union, but now in Russia and Ukraine we don't have any. We don't have the best minds and the best scientists. Yes, of course, there were a lot of scientists in the Soviet Union, but why? Government of the Soviet Union made them to stay there, and they can't go away from the Soviet Union. And they, of course, not all of them want to work. For example, Sikorsky, he traveled from Russia to the USA. Why? Because there is better. There are a lot of another things and examples about traveling different Russian, Ukrainian and others construction scientists from one country to another. Also, they said that there was a religion in the USSR. There was no government religion, but all people had their own religion. Yes, government didn't have religion, but people who had religion can't go just to the church and speak with the God. Why? For example, there is near the Lvov, there was a great church, but after the Soviet Union came, there was no church, there was a factory, a tractor factory, and some years later it was a like a medical house for people who are crazy. Also, they said that one of the best countries in our world is Russia. Yes, they may be patriots, but now a lot of scientists go not to Russia, not to Ukraine, not to other countries from the Soviet Union. They usually go to America. Why? Because in America there are the best things where they can live and where they can work well. Also, you said that decisions can be made easily in the big country with one government. For example, that's the same Soviet Union. But as our second speaker and the first speaker said, there are people who are together can make better solutions of the problems than one man and one government. Also, you said about plants and growing plants in the like in the USSR, about inside trade and others. But do you know how these crops were grown? People who grew these crops died after that hard work. For example, in the same Ukraine, in our country, in Ukraine, do you know that thing like Goldomor? People who were working in fields died after hard work. So, do you think they had a happy life? Yes, please.
Sorry, but I want to tell that we're not talking about films, we're talking about our real life and our real history that was. Not every film shows us that was in real situation such years ago.
Okay, but Goldomor is the history fact, and do you think that in the Batman is true? Is film too? Do you think that Batman is real? Also, I would like to go to our arguments. The first argument is about that vanishing one culture in another in the big empire. Our second speaker said about Kalmyks, Ukrainian people, Estonian people, and many other nations whose culture died after the Soviet Union. Also, I would like to say some example in the early world. For example, Assyrian culture. Assyria was a great empire with a strong army. Under its government, they had a lot of countries like Armenia, Media, Tyre, Babylonia, and others. But Assyrian culture vanished in